forgiven values here. So, one of those things I've learned watching the YouTube industry is that you really need to be timely, and I haven't incredibly been that. This has been a fascinating element of up and down and how successful is the comic book industry at dealing with stuff. And so, let's explain the situation. First, in April 1st, Bleeding Cool has been reporting that the coronavirus has had huge effects on the comic book industry. So is everybody else. Honestly, small stores are not considered essential, which means they're nearly all entirely closed. We've seen comic book stores shut down under government mandate to the point where the employees can't wander in, and the comic book publishers pull back. Or even stop publishing. And of course, Diamond Comics stopped producing stuff to people, and then said it wasn't paying publishers, and now is at 25%. And Bleeding Cool talks about how comic book shops may be able to sell digital codes through comics through their website. Well, that's an awesome agreement, and I kind of like it. And then we talk about Comic Cubs taking over. Now, Comic Cubs is a little complicated. Back when I was involved in the comic book retail, I kind of remember seeing Comic Hub, and it looked like this fascinating service that charged about 10 times what it had to in order to achieve what it did. Which, it looked like it did a brilliant job doing it. But I, as somebody involved in a small comic book shop, would never be able to afford anything involved with Comics Hub. So there is a certain level of, okay. But that doesn't mean that this is a bad idea at all. Purchase now, pick up later. Seems like it's a great compromise. But how much is Comic Hub charging for this? And of course, as it excited, we wander over here. They're waiving the install fee during the Corvid, which is awesome. And so here's the setup. So presumably that $400 is gone. Yay. I wonder if the point of sale system is being shipped out. Seems like that might be affected by this whole involvement of the website. But they're still paying $100 per month per store. And, of course, they have to have an internet and a computer. But very likely most comic book stores have that at this point. So, we're looking at $100 to get involved. Much cheaper than I was expecting. $600 versus $100 is huge, and that is an amazing deal if it works for comic book stores. Now, it sounds like he's still shipping through Diamond. It's just doing an interesting circuitous route on the how is everything ordered. Which, okay. So, they're putting a huge amount towards making this work. And he has a little bit of favorability for the ones who are already on it, which is great. Now, this particular article is written in rather esoteric English, sadly, and is a little too harsh. Gut reaction is it's a little too optimistic about this is the only solution we're going to need. We're going to finish this up. Which unfortunately is closing down articles and definitely going to make the comic book stores who it doesn't work for have to yell louder in order to make people still looking at solutions for them. Now, how much is that discount? $100. Now, first of all, we can probably safely assume that this buy now, receive the product later thing isn't going to appeal to all customers. So let's assume half of customers. It's an easy number. So half of customers might be interested, and of them, half of them are going to hear about it. Probably it's going to be somewhat less than that, but we're going to go with half. So that makes it a fourth of the potential orders initially. Now, it sounds like they're doing standard diamond discount, which, depending on the diamond discount, is basically between 55 and 45% off, which sounds like rather a lot until you factor in that all shipping and handling is handled by the comic book stores, and Diamond is not always the most efficient shipper. On a good day, Diamond, it only costs 20% of the final product cost for inventory in shipping costs. So you're down to 35 to 25% is potential profit. And that's before we cut the cost of keeping the store open and employees employed. And on a bad week, Diamond could go up to 30. Well, assuming it's not a really bad week and they decide to send out one of the giant double boxes with a single comic in it. Grr, arg. But assuming it's not one of Diamond's weeks, most of the time, Diamond produces reasonably between that 20 to 30% of your profits get eaten up on shipping and handling. More if they've had a bad week and damaged a lot of products, because that substantially ups the amount you have to do returns, and things aren't out immediately. And I am going to tell you, there is no way that the week that Diamond reopens, that Diamond's going to be on its best shipping. Diamond is a very benevolent monopoly, but all their staff are going to be out for the duration, and nobody after a 2-month hiatus is at their best the first day back. It just is human nature. So it's going to be closer to that 30%, which means 15 to 25%. That means $40. That means $400 worth of product needs to be sold for absolute certainty before the shops are breaking even. Assuming I didn't miss some percentage that Comic Hub has to begin with. And again, I'm not sure how successful this is going to be as a point of sale to new customers, because they won't know about it. This can be a very expensive potential loss for comic book stores here. Now, this is assuming everything gets shipped in on day one. And when Diamond gets back, it's going to be 2 to 3 weeks worth of inventory. Now, that sounds like what's going to happen, but actually it's almost certainly not going to be that sudden for comic book shops, because the printers haven't been open. And so they're going to be printing half the comic books. So it may be 2-3 weeks of comic books that were distributed that we're doing there. And the rest still have to be printed, which can only happen so fast. May be very interesting to see how Diamond ends up delivering it. They may do a daily delivery for a month. But yeah, that is going to be logistically very challenging for comic book stores. So I can definitely see why some comic book stores had problems with this, particularly since Bleeding Cool, which is one of the big websites, really oversold it, which is going to have the gut reaction of this isn't going to be as successful as you think it is. Now, comic book stores continue to work very, very well on their things. Pull box, pay it forward, which is you can buy somebody else's pull box in advance, which is awesome. Little agreement, get a little bit of the free advertising. Well, not free. Get a little bit of advertising for people. Definitely get some charity work done for other people who are broke at the moment. Get a bunch of comic books out to other people and get some money in the comic book store's hands. Now, we've seen that there's a lot of comic book shows having issues. So I'm really hoping that things go well. Looks like Comic Cub has some brilliant stuff here. Now, you're seeing on more successful notes that are absolute just funds in the comic book shop's hands that they can use to pay their bills without necessarily strings that they can't meet. Judge is the fundraiser to avoid bankruptcy. This one, definite legit, seeing there, and sending it out, and hand delivery, which is amazingly useful, other than a lot of comic book stores their employees aren't even allowed in the doors. Which, brilliant idea in doing here. I love the Golden Apples idea. I really, really hope Golden Apple does very, very well out of this. $50 to see if they can get some brilliant comics. Now this, I really like. The publisher's doing a 50 split with the profits. It says 50% of money on their store, on It's Alive, but I'm assuming they're only talking about profit after cost of printing and shipping. Still, amazing way to help a comic book shop. Great job to help comic books, because just flat out money may get the comic book shop through the situation. Definitely allows It's Alive, or any other publisher that does this as an advertising thing, to get everything working, which is awesome. Brilliant. And something that people might think about is that as individual artists, who are sadly less busy than we'd like, possibly single comics with an artist, get an artist to there, see if you can split 50-50 on the comic book shop, in return for a name, and do a comic entirely for charity in this thing where you split the profits with the comic book store. We'll get a lot more eyes on publishers, help get names out for a lot of people who are concerned about this. And if we're doing 50-50 splits, you might walk home with some change. No reason for you to be out of work. So you can get this, do the hand-published stuff, split it with a comic book store, help a comic book store in need so that everything is, as the industry is as much intact at the end of this as we can manage. And definitely get a lot more advertising for yourself, and possibly pull a little bit of bling in this time when everybody's a bit short. So I think this is brilliant. I think a lot of individual comic book creators ought to look at doing this. If you are sadly temporarily furloughed, unless your publication requires that you can't draw for anybody else, definitely you should think about pairing up with a comic book shop that you like and seeing if you can turn some money. Hook up with an artist on your own. can't find anywhere else, I'm familiar with good old comic book collaborations over on Reddit. Probably can pick up somebody pretty fast for a publication project there. Yeah, I know a lot of people really want to do the money at the front, but in this case, it is about charity, so you're pushing through, and you're keeping busy. You're making sure that you get the absolute maximum monies that you can right now. And yeah, times are tight. But if people know that they're mostly supporting the industry the way they want, that's pretty good. And I'm going to comment, if you do this, and it's at all possible, definitely work with the comic book shop to see if you can do a signing with them, or if they can help arrange some stuff on specialty things when they're back open. Be a great thing. Speaking of what happens when the comic books open, what are people planning to do about Free Comic Book Day? I mean, definitely have memories of Free Comic Book Day. It being packed at there, but it's the best sales thing for the entire year for comic book shops, and they're out of it. And so, is there some plan on moving Free Comic Book Day or doing something, pushing Comic Fest? It's Comic Fest from October, up into a bigger deal, so that comic book publishers still have that once a year really big push to get people in? Or heck, do a special one for Thank God the virus is over and we can all go back to work. Is there some talk about doing a bonus Free Comic Book Day stuff? Also, is anybody doing something major with this pay now, buy later, for say you pay now, get a digital copy of a comic book, but later you get a toy or a plaque thanking people for helping support with the corona fight? Because I don't know that the thing at the end that's delivered at the end needs to be the same comic book as you get in digital. And that might make that a lot more attractive to a lot of people. Regardless, I really do hope that people come up with more creative things. I don't want to see the comic book stores gone. So, really good luck, guys.